Hello everyone, welcome to my course lesson Understanding for of in JavaScript. In this lesson, we are going to learn all about the for of statement in JavaScript and how we can use it to loop over iterables in JavaScript. Now, the for of statement is a type of statement in the for statement we have in JavaScript. For of is used to loop over iterable objects in JavaScript. Now, iterable objects are objects that conform to the iterable protocol in JavaScript. The built-in iterables we have in JavaScript are arrays, string, map, set, typed array, then built-in function arguments, generator functions that we have in JavaScript, generator functions, and custom defined iterables. Later in this course, we will see how we can create an iterable of our own. So let's start with an array. We have an array here, fruits that have 5 elements inside it. Now we can loop through these fruits using the for of statement. This is how we do it. First, we write the for, open bracket, then we now write where we want to store the statement to store a single fruit, give a space, write off, then the variable of the array, we'll write it here, then we open a brace and close it. So inside this body of the for of array is where we get each fruit there, so we can access it inside here. So but for now, let's just log it. Fruit. Let's add a little bit of context so that we understand what we are logging. Fruit. So we can log it. Now let's run the file node test. You see, sorry, let's add a space, let's clear it. So you see, this for of statement loops through this fruit array, and in each array we have each of these elements stored here. So it loops through this fruit array. In the first iteration, it will have this first element apple. So this runs, we log it. Next iteration, it goes to the second element, which is banana, and so on, orange, grape, and mango. So for each iteration of the elements in the fruits array, it will log this or any code we have in between these braces there. So this is a simple example of how the for of runs. You first write the for keyword, open a bracket, then write this statement. This statement will first write let fruit. This, what we are doing here is that we are creating a variable and telling JavaScript to hold each element of fruit in this array here. So for each iteration, these fruits hold a single element. So we'll now write the of keyword, then followed by the array that we want to iterate over, which is fruits in this case. So this is basically how the for of run works. So we can add more things to it here. We can do whatever we want with the fruit here. So remember that inside these braces we have this fruit, and in each iteration this fruit contains at a particular point each element here up to the last. So we can even pluralize the fruit, like we can now do something like plural fruit. Just we can just play with it, then log it. When we run it, you see it gives us the plural stuff. So we can do whatever we now want with the fruits inside this array. So that's one major advantage for of has over the traditional for loop. In the traditional for loop, we'll do something like mathematical calculation inside it. So as to get the first each iteration or each element in the array. But with for of, we simply write it like this. We don't need to tell JavaScript condition like we have here, that if the current index is less than the elements in the array, it should stop. Then telling it on which index to start. But here JavaScript does everything. We just tell it where to store each fruit, give it the array we want to iterate over, and that's all. So JavaScript moves through the array till the end and stops. So we're much less likely to encounter or define using for of statement than in using the traditional for loop. So this is a basic way to iterate over an array using the for of. So also we can iterate over an array created using the new array constructor. So this works also. Let me remove this. Then the ARR here is an array, so we can also use the for of loop on it. We can do something like this. Can now say item where to attach each element in the ARR array. Then we write our of keyword, give a space, then the array, close the bracket, open a brace, close it. Then inside here we can now log it. Let's see how it works. Play our console, then unlog. So you see we have each element in the array. So this is just similar stuff to this. Just similar to this. So the ARR is still an array. So both of them are similar. Just that the first one, line 3, is another way of creating an array using the array constructor. Now, this here we are using let. We can change this let to const since we are not changing it. So we can change it to const so as to make sure that this item here is never changed. Also, be mindful that we can only see this item, this variable item, inside the scope of the for. We cannot use it outside here like this. We cannot use it outside here at all. Let's test it. You cannot see it. It's not visible outside. So you see it throws undefined. It works inside. That's why we're able to log each item in the array, but outside of it we do not see it. So at the end of the loop in this for of, the for loop discards this item because this item is in its execution context or environment context. So it destroys it and then returns control to the global scope. So in the global scope there is no item there. So that's why it threw this item is not undefined error, a reference error. So let's move over to the string and see how we can iterate over it using the for of. So we have a string here, a string literal here. We can also iterate over it using the for of. Now we create the variable we want to store each letter of keyword, then the name of the string. Now this is similar to what we have seen in the array part. Create the for, create the variable to store each element in the array or in the string in this case, sorry. then the for or the off keyword and the name of the variable, which is string in this case. Then inside the body, it will loop each and every one of character in this string, even an empty array, comma, or any other thing. So far as it is enclosed in a string, every item in the string becomes a character. So let's log it and see how it looks like. Oh, sorry. I opened the node context. Let me close it. Let me clear it. So you see, it loops through each character in the string John Doe, even the space there, it logs it and prints every character in the string. So a string can also be looped over using the for of array. So whenever we use the for of on a string, for of treats the string like an array. So it's just similar to this. So it's just similar to this, breaking it down, J like this. Thank you, Copilot. So it's similar to breaking it down like this. So it loops over it one after the other, each character there, and prints it. So that's how for loop, for of works on a string. Using the traditional for statement, we can loop over a string like this. Like this. We can still loop over it, but using for of makes it very easy for us. So let's see the traditional method. Let's clear our console. So you see a traditional method. So a string is basically also, and they are treated like an array. So each member or each character in a string is treated like elements in an array. So let's come down to the next variable. So this variable str is a way to create a string using the string constructor. So this and this are of string type, just that this name is created using the string literal, whereas this is created using the string operators, but both of them are still strings types. We can also perform the for of statement on this str variable. Then we go let then character where we'll store each element in the string, then the string open brace, close brace, then log the character variable. So you see, we log everything there. The space young are all logged in our console. So we can also loop through a string created using the string constructor. Now let's look at map. Look at here, we created a map that has a key value pairs. A surname is the key, and this is the value. First name is the key, and this is the value. So whenever we create a map, we use this map constructor, then and pass multi-dimensional array into it. As we are seeing now, we have two dimensional arrays here. The first is the original array, and inside this original array, we pass in arrays of values that has the key and the values. Now look at this first array. The first element in it is the key, whereas the second element is the value. So likewise here, this is the key, this is the value, and we can get these values like this using the get method, and we call the keys. If we say surname like this, it gets us this value, Chidome. Now we can loop through these values using the for of. To do it, we first write our for keyword, the brackets, then let, then now write the map key. This is the value or the variable where we want to store each iteration. Now write the off and then write map. Then we open a brace, close it. Then inside the body, let's log the map key. Remember, this map key stores each item in the iteration. So now let's run it. Now see, the first iteration gave us this, second iteration gives us these two. So we can see that whenever we use the for of a map, it loops over and returns for each iteration the arrays in it. So it returns the arrays that contains the key and the value. So also, instead of doing this, we can destructure the keys and the values. We already know that inside the map key is an array, so we can destructure the elements inside the array. Remember, the first element is a key and the second element is a value. So therefore, we can destructure it like this. We first an array, then we'll now write in the variables where we want to destructure the keys and the values into. So the first element we want to destructure is the key. So write key here, a comma follows, then a space, then value. What this does is that the key of the array will be here. That means the first element, which is the key, will be here. Then the value, which is the second element, will be here. So we can remove this and log both variables, key and value. Let's see it. Yeah, so the first element here is the surname. In the first iteration is surname. The second element value in the first iteration is a string Chidume. So likewise, the second iteration is first name and named. So this is how to loop through a map using the for of statement. So in each iteration in the for of against a map, it returns an array. So and the array, as we know, contains the key and the value respectively. So we have seen how to loop through a map that was constructed. So let's look at how to loop through a map that is dynamically added. We have map2 here, and now let's set in the values. We have map2 here with no initial values, so let's dynamically set in the values. So we have set name and age. So likewise, we can loop through this map here. So now let's see, we start with 4. Let map key or map, let's say map object, then off, then map2. Then we'll now log it. To still give us the same thing. Yes, you see, so whenever we run the set method, it constructs an array, the first element being the key, and this is the value. So it will add the inside the array first, this key here, the first parameter, and this, which is the value, the second parameter to the array. So that's why we have this in the first iteration. Then in the second one, when we call this set, this will create a second array. Then, and inside the array, the first element entered will be this, the second element will be this, 8. So in the second iteration, that's why we now got this. So that's how to loop through a map in JavaScript using the for of statement. Now let's look at set. What is a set? A set in JavaScript is used to store unique values. Now we can also loop through set using the for of statement. A set is also an iterable, a built-in iterable. So now let's loop through our set variable here. So we use the same syntax. First we write for bracket, then let. We'll now write set var object variable to store each value in the iteration, then followed by of and the name of the set variable here. Then open bracket, close. Then inside it, we'll now log the set var object. Let's run it. Node test. You see, this line 22 logs the first element, second element, the third element, which is 8, but does not log the fourth element, which is 8, because there's already 8 here in the array or in the set here. So it does not log it because it will remove this 8 because there is already the same value 8 before it. So that's why we just got Chidume, Namdi, and 8. So you see that we can also log set. We can also log set using, we can also iterate through set using the for of statement. Now let's come down to typed array. Now let's look at typed array. A typed array in JavaScript is used to store unique values in the big data fields. You know, in Java, in numbers or in data, we have the int, double, long. So you see that all these things represent numbers when they get bigger and have fractions. Now let's look at the typed array in the Mozilla docs. We see it here. Then let's look at the table. You see, we have the typed arrays objects, and each one what they represent. The int 8 array represents a byte. So these are the type of data and the size in bytes they store. The int 8 array stores bytes, uint 8 stores octet, so and then words. So this is how typed array occurs. We can now see the value range from negative values to up to 120, 128, uint from 0 to 255, on clamp, uint clamped array from 0 to 255 is the value range. So now for here, we are using the uint8 array. So basically, it's a typed array is basically an array, and of course the for of can loop through it. Now let's see it in action. For let current, or we can now say item of, then we'll now write the name of the typed array, which is typed array in this case. Then let's log it. Let's clear our console. So you see, we log numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first element in the array corresponds to this. Second element 180 corresponds to this. Third element this, and the final element 170 corresponds to that. So this is how we can loop through typed array using the for of statement. Now let's look at the argument inside a function. Remember that we said that arguments inside a function is an iterable, so we can loop through it using the for of statement. So now, in each function, there is an object or an object-like array that exists inside each function. It is the arguments. Now, this arguments contains in array all the argument passed through a function. Now, this argument here will contain all these arguments. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arguments passed to the function test func. So these arguments will contain all these arguments inside it. Yes, we can also get the arguments here like this, like this. Yes. So this one points to this points to this to this, and so on, and so on. Yeah. Also, we have this arguments object inside the function that can also reference each and every one of the arguments passed to the function. We can reference it like how we do in array. This is in the 0 index, this is in the 1 index, this in 2, 3, 4. So to reference the first argument, which is chidome, we use the 0 index like this, and we'll get that argument. So let's log it, and here we call the function. Let's see what happens. So you see the first argument is the 0 index, so we reference it inside the arguments object, just like we do in array. So we get it. If you put 1 here, it will get Namdi. 2 gives us loves, 3 gives us the second argument JS, and 4th gives us 1000. So that's how we can use this argument object to reference all the arguments passed to that function. So also this argument is an iterable. We can loop through it using the for of statement. Let's see how we can do it. First, we write our for keyword as we always do, then a bracket, then followed by let, then followed by the variable we want to store each value in the iteration. So in this case, let's say current argument, then run right off a space, we now write argument, then followed by 2 braces, open and closing, then we'll log it. Then here, let's just log it very well to the readable. Current argument. So when we run it, you see that it gives us all the arguments passed to the function. It loops through the arguments and returns all the arguments passed through the function inside here. So we get each and every one of these arguments inside this current arg variable. So we can do with it whatever you want inside these braces. Note, this argument, number 1, only exists inside the function scope. 2, it exists only in defined functions. It does not exist in arrow functions. Like when we do something like this, it does not exist here. So we can never get this argument object here. We can never get it in arrow functions like this. So we always get it in non-arrow functions, and it's only available in the function scope. Outside of it, we can never get this. So this is how we loop through the argument object in a function and do whatever you want to do with it in the for loop statement body, and also get the current value of each loop in the argument. Now, we have been using let in the for of to store the current value in the iteration. Let me show this very well. Let me use with our previous fruits array. So we do something like this. this let fruit of fruits, then log the fruit. Now using let here means this fruit can be changeable inside this function. Let's see how. Say fruit and I say I love. Now with this line 4, fruit changes from the current element in the fruit to this string I love concatenated with the current fruit. So in this line 4, we mutated or we changed the fruit element. Let's see it. You see, it becomes I love plus the fruit. Now, this can be dangerous sometimes, and we may like to keep the current value of this. We may like to keep it. So to do that, we have to remove this let and replace it with const, so that we cannot, in whatever way inside the for of statement, change it like we did in for. So if we leave this line 4 and try to run it, we'll run into error. So you see type error that fruit, the assignment to the constant variable fruit should not be done. So it turns to a type error. So whenever we try to run it, we'll have this type error. So to do that, we have to remove it. But what if we want to log I love fruit? So we need to create another variable that will hold that, like this, and then now log that variable. So as to preserve this fruit, we now know within this for of braces that this fruit variable here can never change. It always holds the current value in the fruit array in the iteration. So we'll run this. Simple. We still get what we want in the UI, same as before.